Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hello, chat. Happy Pride Month.
Hi, Graham. Hi, Max.
We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to start rolling in before we get started. Today, we're doing our Pride in Gaming dev panel to talk about queer representation in gaming and offer some advice for any of you out there who are trying to break in to the games industry. Should we give chat like an emoji to put in chat?
I mean, someone already just hit up with some Pride one. Well, we've got
Yeah.
some hearts in chat already. There's plenty of hearts and Pride flags and whatnot that
Yes.
people can use that
Love
they can
it.
just kind of spam that are free 99. Although Max has the fire rainbow horse, I'm gonna have to say that's probably
That's love it.
I love it.
Give everybody another minute. Yeah, the way this is going to work today is we're going to first half of the hour. We are going to share a little bit about ourselves and our career journeys into the games industry, which are all kind of like winding and fun. And then in the back half of the hour, we're going to talk about queer representation in gaming and some games that have been really impactful for us in the space of identity. We're not going to be talking about any new or any games today or anything in development. So we won't be taking any questions like that in chat. But if you have any questions about career or advice or resources, feel free to drop them in and we will try to answer them periodically.
I think we're good. I think we should kick off. We got a good group here. It's
Kick
nice
off?
to see some familiar faces. Yeah, well, names. Nice to see familiar usernames on a screen. But yeah, we know the faces behind them. Except for you, Orange. I actually don't know what you look like. I just picture an orange when I think
An
of
orange.
Like, yeah, sorry.
Just an orange with a face that's just,
just like a
at you
sentient
as
orange.
hard as possible.
Well, yeah, let's kick it off. Vanessa, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and
Sure.
what you do here?
Sure. So some of you have seen me before. I am Vanessa Brasfield. I'm a community coordinator here at Crystal Dynamics. I am kind of a Jane of all trades and I'm a little bit of everywhere. And I am the queen of support things. So chances are if there's something you like from us, I am probably behind the scenes helping on it in some way, shape, or form. I am that kind of quiet, ominous voice that's just kind of troubleshooting things that no one notices.
And Garen.
Good morning. My name is Garen Richards. I go by he, him pronouns. I am a UI software engineer here at Crystal Dynamics, and I identify as overwhelmingly gay.
Oh, I didn't even say that part. I got all types of adjectives I can add
There
on.
you go, girl.
I go by
Never too late.
Yeah, I go by she, they pronouns. I am asexual. I am what's called gender flux. I won't go into the definition of it, but just know that I am a pile of goo and a meat popsicle at most times. So like, it's really dependent on my mood. Sometimes I feel like pizza. Other times I feel like girl. It's a mess. Just know that much.
I'm so excited to see that on like a hello, my name is, and try to fit that all in. That'd be great.
They don't make name tags long enough. Sam, how about you?
Hey, my name is Sam Dobes. I'm a producer 3. I go by she, her, and I identify as pansexual.
Rock on, Megan.
Hello, hi, I am Megan Marie. I go by she, her. I'm director of community and social media here at Crystal and identify as bisexual, probably moving towards pansexual because the gender binary can go out the window half the time. So just more used to saying bisexual, but yes.
And I am, I'm Hunter Wolf. Pronouns are he, him. I'm a community and social media manager here at Crystal. I'm very, very gay. I'll be I will be hosting our panel today. Again, we're going to be talking about our career journeys. We're going to be talking about all things queer representation in gaming. And I would be remiss to not plug our month-long community fundraiser for the It Gets Better project today. We'll have links in chat where if you'd like to make a gift, you can. The It Gets Better project is an incredible organization that empowers and uplifts LGBTQ youth. And we have asked the organization to direct all of the money that we've raised throughout the month, specifically to the organization's trans-focused programming. So with that, let's get started. We're going to start by getting into our career journeys, and I think we want to take it back all the way to the beginning. Miss Vanessa.
Oh dear.
Where's your hometown? Where are you from?
I am originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and my journey started with a little blue blur by the name of Sonic the Hedgehog. I love him. I adore him. We started at 7. It's 30 years later, and I'm still playing video games. And that took me into my bachelor's degree, which was for video game character concept art. I wanted to draw a lot of fantasy characters. I wanted to draw fighting game characters. Except at the time, that was when we had the big space boom of Halo and Gears of War and other things like that. And I was like, I don't want to draw Space Marines. So I got my master's in data analytics and research, and I kind of just kept playing video games and talking game dev. And that kind of eventually led to a lot of project management roles, a lot of team leadership roles, and then eventually into a community coordinator role here at Crystal Dynamics. So don't let anyone ever tell you that the path is straightforward. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
never.
And we love having you here. We love having you here.
Garen, where are you from?
So originally, I'm from Hawaii, calling Waianae, Hawaii home. For all intents and purposes, though, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we'll get more into all of that later with my education and our journeys there. But spent a lot of time there, and now I find myself today in Austin, Texas. It's very warm. Is it much cooler where you guys are? Because it is. Ooh, okay. Yeah.
In San Francisco, it's like a
Warmer.
consistent 55 degrees almost year round.
Love that for you.
Except
Cannot
for-
be us.
A month in October.
It is a blanket of water walking out right now. So I'm staying indoors. Anyway, so
Megan, where are you
Yes.
from?
I'm originally from Minnesota. Yeah, most of the time, if I'm really tired, you can tell that I'm from Minnesota because my O's start to get a little longer. But then moved to California for Crystal Dynamics, and then now I'm in the lovely Pacific Northwest, and I love it here. Some of them in the Seattle area, and it's just beautiful.
And Sam, where's your hometown?
So I'm from Tucson, Arizona, originally, and I moved up to the Washington area originally for college and have stayed here ever since because I like trees and not being in 110-degree heat during the summers.
Yeah, so many trees. Oh,
So
The
many
Last of Us
trees.
is like, I get it now. I get why they put The Last of Us there because it's just like this
Right?
so much green. Anyway.
So Vanessa, let's bounce back to you. When you were, little Vanessa, 7 years old in St. Louis, was there a
Mhm.
moment where you knew you wanted to work in video games? What was that discovery like for you?
It was really interesting because I just started playing games and I was like, I want to do this. Because you know how everyone else has their story about how I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a doctor, and it's something where it's like I want to help people. Nope, right there at the right age of 7, I was like, I want to make cool stuff that other people like, and that's my endeavor for the rest of my life. That's what I'm doing now. And so we just kind of ran with that and took it from there. And then I wanted to draw, and that actually kicked off the drawing aspect when I'll share a small story so I won't hog all the time. I basically wanted a flower border for my room, and my mom told me no. And at 7 years old, I decided the answer was fine, I'll make my own. And so I took crayons and I drew my own flower border around my room because I wanted one. My mother was not pleased. I was ecstatic, but
Did she leave them up?
they lasted about a week, and then my mom came in one night when I was sleeping and washed them off, and I was very upset.
So you were always creative at the beginning, and at some point you saw video games, you saw Sonic, you're like, hey, this is for me. I'm gonna work toward that.
I'm going to just work towards that. And so it started with flower borders, and then I drew Sonic, and then I drew lots of little animal friends from other artists I saw, and then I drew Sailor Moon, and it just kept escalating higher and higher from there. And I found myself just being like, I want to just draw more stuff.
Now,
Love
so Garen, you kind of like fell into video games, right? You went through school and you were kind of doing it, but didn't know that's what you wanted to do after. Is that right?
yeah, I liked games all as a kid, my entire life. Shout out to Sonic. That was my first first game. First console was Genesis, Sonic 2. And I loved it growing up as a kid, right? I owned a bunch of Sega, Nintendo, then eventually PlayStation, Xbox, and that whole thing. It wasn't until I got to my undergraduate degree in computer science. So I fell in love with computer programming really early on, like middle school, early high school. Like I just thought that stuff was so tight. I loved it. And, there's a pretty reputable state university nearby with a great CS program. I'm like, I'm gonna check that out. So I enrolled and I did about a year or so in that pre-major program they usually send the engineers through, right? And I realized that game engineering is infinitely more interesting than any of the other type of software work that they had us doing in these classes. I was like, I took a databases courses that was really interesting. Web development didn't hit, graphics didn't hit. But yeah, I took a game programming class and I was like, this is actually pretty good, So that's when I decided to pivot. Still continued a computer science degree, but just ended up sprinkling into my extracurriculars more game design and devy stuff. So that's how I ended up.
I love that journey because you tried lots of things and a bunch of things didn't stick. And I think that's kind of like a good reminder for people who are, they want to work in video games, but maybe they're not sure there. Like, would you say it's important to try lots of things, to discover maybe what you like and don't like?
Absolutely. I mean, even if finding out something that you don't like, that's still a data point. Now that is not in your radar or in your realm of interest, so you can, pivot and turn your attention to other things and explore other things. I'm always recommending people to do that in the sense of like, hey, try it. If you don't like it, that's still good information. Move on to the next thing, move down the list, see what excites you. But yeah, that was exactly it. Like these intro CS courses, I loved the problem solving aspect of software engineering, but the actual end product, I was like, the game stuff seems more fun. Seems more fun than web page. No shade to my web dev and other software engineering, friends, but games are fun.
Your job's
pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah.
Now, Megan, when did you realize you wanted to work in video games?
Yeah, it all just goes back to Tomb Raider. I feel like I've said this with some of the Tomb Raider fans in the chat are gonna know this story. But yeah, I wanted to actually be a marine biologist before I wanted to work in video games. That only lasted for like a short amount of time. But then I discovered Tomb Raider when I was like 12, almost 13 or so on. And I was just like, wow, if she works in games, if Lara Croft, quote unquote, works in games, right, then there's room for me too. And so I just got really, I knew that I wanted to try to find ways to like create experiences or work on experiences like that. Final Fantasy VII was also a big one for like my brothers and I, of like realizing, holy cow, games can be real impactful. Like they can really be meaningful. Yeah, and so that was something that I focused on. I didn't know what I was going to do for a long time until I read a Game Informer magazine, which I subscribed to, and I saw that they were based out of Minneapolis, and I was like, there's a video game thing in Minnesota? What? Other than like Activision, there's like an Activision Outdoors like big buck hunting division, I think there was, or something. But I really wanted to work at Game Informer, and so that kind of the passion and drive for working specifically at Game Informer kind of kicked me in the right direction in college and so on. But I'll chat about that a little bit more later.
In another life, you fell into the big buck hunter trajectory.
I like deer too much. I couldn't do that. Yeah.
Now, Sam, let's go to Sam. Your story, I think, is so common in the games industry, where someone came from a completely different career path before getting into games. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh, yes. So baby Sam wanted to be a veterinarian because growing up in a lower income family, I didn't realize there were things you could do outside of doctor, lawyer, or, the big three that could bring in lots of money. So I decided I was going to go to school for veterinary medicine, and video games were not even a remote possibility in my mind. I was like, I didn't even know it was a thing. It didn't even cross my mind when they were like, what do you want to do with your life? So, junior year of college, I realized after working as a custodian in the veterinary hospital to like talk to folks that I didn't like medicine. Like the field is very interesting, but it was something that like felt less like helping people and more of like the administrative like insurance things that you have to jump through when you go into that field. And I was just like, that doesn't feel like me anymore. So I spent junior year like, what do I want to do with my life? And I was like, well, I like psychology and I like English. I got those two degrees instead. And then I was like, I'm just gonna figure it out as I go. And someone was like, well, why don't you go into games? And I was like, I don't even know what I would do at this point. But I was like, sure, we'll figure it out as we go.
I think there's something there about, transferable skills. I think that's like a good
Yes.
something to spotlight, is that a lot of people who come here from other industries, they make it in the games industry, and they should apply for those jobs because the skills, those like soft skills or transferable skills from their role, can translate to so many different positions in the industry. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I have a whole bit later on like my core person I discovered was I'm really good at admin work and paperwork, and no one likes doing those. So I'm guaranteed a job for life. So as long as I continue to grow those skills, like I could transfer into games. I didn't know what production was at the time, but like I had really great mentors along the way that helped explain like it doesn't matter like where I started or what degree I got. Like as long as I kept working on those core skills, like I could get into games in any way I wanted.
So that's a great segue to Vanessa, talking about your career path a little bit, because I think your experience is so varied, for all the different things that you've tried that lend themselves perfectly to what you now do in games. So let's go a little more in detail about your career path. You got your master's and content creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I kind of messed up and talked about some of it a little bit earlier, but again, I started out with saying, let's draw stuff. And so I went and got my bachelor's in computer graphics technology with a focus on video game character concept design. And like I said, I wanted to draw like the characters in Fable, the characters in Street Fighter. I was like high fantasy and also really into the FGC at the time. So that's what I wanted to do. But then we had all the stuff with the Halos, the Gears of War, the Battlefields, all of those. And I was just like, I don't want to draw that. But I found out that I really liked kind of the same thing Sam was saying. There's always that one thing in dev that people are just like, I don't want anything to do with this. And for me, that's data work, because I liked following trends and seeing how things happen and seeing like the ideas of what causes that, why is it happening, how do we replicate that. And so I wound up getting my master's in data analytics and research, and I was going to go into big data. But big data was not kind at the time. So when you spend all of that time in between doing odd jobs of project managing for the state of Indiana, or doing things like running a team for a car dealership company where you're the lead graphic designer, it gets to be a really interesting smorgasbord of skills, because you just know how to work with people in so many unique and intricate ways. And so that led to me doing content creation here on Twitch. And I started creating content where I was just like, I'll just play like some Darkest Dungeon and see where it goes. And as time passed, I realized I really wanted to do more with community building, because I liked helping people at the end of the day. I wanted to help people see their goals. I wanted to help people get to like their achievements or help them get their W's. And in gaming, few things felt as good as when a game dev would reach out to me and be like, hey, do you want to play our game? Because yes, I do want to play your game. And I was like, I want to be that person. That's who I want to be. I want to put joy in people's lives like that, to be like, you said you like Lara Croft? That's so cool. Hey, I have stuff for you. And just watching them light up and just be like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, that's the serotonin hit I want. It's that one. That's the one. And so I just kept doing content creation. And a couple of game studios started following my Twitter and liked my stuff. And then Megan also was one of my Twitter followers, along with a few other Crystalites. And they were just like, we saw that you're looking for work. You should apply here. And so now I'm here, and I'm just like, I'm going to give stuff to people and I'm very excited. But I also do that for my coworkers because I like helping my coworkers and I'm a very, I don't want to say serving person, but I like seeing teamwork come together. And that's like the thing that brings me the high the most, where I'm just like, I want to see group efforts come together and be like, yeah, we did that. Good job, team. And then do more stuff like that. And that's why I'm in game dev now and hanging out and doing panels and stuff.
So Garen, you went through university and you discovered that you love UIUX, and then where was that moment where you broke into the industry?
Before I get to that, I want to also kind of maybe strengthen more to that point I made earlier, right? So I finished my undergraduate in CS, knew I wanted to continue on in games, and enrolled in a master's games program. But even then, at that moment, UI engineer was nowhere near my name. Even at that moment, I was like, okay, I know I want to make games, you know, over the last 2-3 millennia, however long I was in school, I don't like to think about it. You know, I was obviously working on game projects and doing a bunch of all kinds of corners of game development, but I didn't know exactly which one to hit, right? So in this games program, I found myself doing a bunch of different, you know, corners of game programming, right? Engine work, graphics work, audio work. And it wasn't like just by stroke of luck, like towards the end of that 2-year program, we were tasked with like just adding a feature to a game engine that we were writing all semester. And just for fun, you know, I saw a list of topics and you know, the instructor was like, oh, you can do some stuff with UI tech or things like that. And y'all, it hit. Like once I saw those buttons and menus on screen, I'm like, this is cool. I like literally the 0th hour, like the last 3 or 4 months of my time there. And so I quickly like just diverged all my energy into learning everything I could about UI engineering. And shortly after graduation, throughout school, I was also fortunate enough to get, you know, maybe an internship here or there and, you know, work with the local game dev community in Salt Lake City. So towards the end of my 2 years there, you know, I started applying for work. I knew at this point, you know, I'd probably be moving away from the family somewhere in the continental US, right? And found myself here in Austin, Texas, working my first AAA UI games job. That first job in studio was an incredible experience. I made some great friends, learned a lot of things about the craft, about the process, about you know, just how the you know, how the sauce is made. And eventually I found myself here at the Crystal Southwest studio in Austin, almost just about a year ago, actually, almost just about a year ago. So yeah, that's where I'm hanging out today, y'all.
I love that you called out some of the side stuff that you were doing. We'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about some resources for anyone who might be interested in these roles. But I think most of the people in this group all had like some kind of side hustles or side passions that was valuable experience that ended up leading them to the role that they have now. So
yeah,
I think,
absolutely. I mean, for fun, I took a mobile app development course, because what are smartphone apps if not just UI, right? And I really enjoyed it, and you know, a lot of those skills was immediately transferable to a lot of UI in games. So, but yeah.
Megan, I know you've shared your story quite a bit before, but for this group, you said you went to school for communications and journalism. Where'd you go?
Yeah. Well, so my major was actually graphic design. My minor was journalism and mass communications. And that was like social media before they actually had dedicated social media courses. But I did that because I knew I wanted to work at Game Informer going into college. And so I went to the University of Minnesota and I thought I will either write for them or I will design for them. And eventually I ended up doing a little bit of both, which was exciting. But I went to school, and all the while I was doing college work, I was every single project I turned into something video game related. Like we had an ethics and journalism course, and I did a deep dive study on legislation for video games. I had to take an art elective, so I took welding and I made a Choco Mog sculpture, which was a Chocobo Mog sculpture, because they said we had to make an amalgamation of 2 animals, and I was like, can they be fake animals? And they said yes. And it was featured on Kotaku, which was really cool at the time. So yeah, like everything I did, I just poured like my passion for gaming into everything that I did, just hoping that it would like holistically look nice. You know, when I graduated, I was also starting to cosplay at the time, so like uber gaming nerd. And I really confidently, we'll say confidently, I put future Game Informer editor in my MySpace profile, like as my tag. And Andrew Reiner, the guy who was the EIC at the editor-chief, he's the associate editor in chief. So there was Andy McNamara and him. He contacted me and he was like, hey, we got an opening, you should apply. So I stayed up all night and I like reviewed Dirge of Cerberus. And then I gave it to them the next day. I even like designed the whole layout and everything. And I gave it to them. And then I got a call like 2 days later from Andy McNamara. And he's like, you're halfway through school, finish college, and then apply again. We can't take you out of college. We would feel terrible. And so like I was in a public place when they told me, I just remember having a breakdown and I cried and I was like, oh, I lost my chance. But I didn't. I just kept working and I applied again literally the day I graduated. And in the meantime, I was writing for a bunch of like smaller blogs like the Girls Entertainment Network and so on. And then the day I graduated, I applied. They didn't have a position for me. So I asked for an informational interview just to get to meet the team. And then I met the team and then they found a position for me. So I was 2 weeks after graduating, I was basically at Game Informer, to the point, to my mom's consternation, I didn't even walk in my college, like to get my diploma. No. I was like, nah, I've already got my job. I'm done. Sorry. So yeah, that was, I just was super focused. And then eventually, after a couple years at Game Informer, that ended up leading to Crystal because we had the world exclusive Tomb Raider cover story. And I was like, I'm writing this. There is no question. I am writing this story, sirs. And they let me write it. And, you know, I'm sure they're very happy for me now. But at the time, they were a little bummed out that I ended up leaving. But there was no place that, you know, Game Informer was like the dream job. But then like working with Lara Croft was the job I never even imagined. So it's been quite a ride. So yeah, came over to Crystal in 2011 and been here pretty much since.
I love your story in that there's like you experienced a couple setbacks or moments where you thought like you lost your shot. And I like the one thing I love to tell people is like anyone can work in games. Do you think there's like a lesson there or something there about, you know, persisting even in the face of rejection? I mean, you got that working as a journalist, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Every opportunity, you learn from everything, right? And so even if you apply once somewhere and you weren't ready and they rejected you, you can ask for more information. Why? How do I have to grow? And then work and try again in the future. But there is, you know, rejection is often just a chance to learn and keep pursuing your passion in different ways. And I firmly agree with what you said, is that like there's room for everyone in video games. Like one thing I love about Crystal is like when we have big group meetings and we're saying, IT, you guys are the freaking superstars. You killed it. You did this, you did that. Finance, like amazing. Admin, because everybody knows that admin keeps us alive and together and all of that. Like, you know, like everybody, there are so many different things to do to help make video games, to help the people that make video games, to help the technology that makes video games. Like if you want to work in games, there's a place for you.
And I think that people are super amicable to being reached out to. People in the games industry want to help. So if you're interested in a role, I'd always encourage you to find someone who's doing what you're doing. Many game devs are really visible online, and just shoot them a message. It's a great way to get your name out there as well.
Which is what you did with me.
Yes,
I met
also
you through the Tomb Raider community.
You sure did. I also applied to Crystal, I think three times for different roles over the course of years before I got my role as a community coordinator. So, Sam, so you went to Washington State, is that correct?
Yep, that is where I decided I was going to go. It was far enough away from Tucson. It had enough trees. It had the vet hospital, and I'm like, this qualifies and has all the things that I needed in life in order to be happy. So went to Washington State, had that whole junior year breakdown of like, oh God, I don't want to do medicine. What do I do with my life? Was like, I'm just going to go with psychology and English degrees. We'll stay an extra year. We'll get 2 degrees. We'll figure it out. And I worked a couple part-time jobs while I was in college to kind of just foot the bill, but also like to try to figure out like, what am I doing with my life? And one of those jobs was data entry for a psychology program that was happening for a a couple different studies that they were doing at the time, and I was really good at data entry and just like working with numbers and just like the general admin skills. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here, and I'll just build admin. So graduated and immediately had to find a job to pay bills, and then managed to get a connection over at Amazon in their recruiting department through my alumni association. So went there, got a more permanent job, and my mentor at the time, Christy, she was like, "Hey, Amazon has a games org. Like, did you know this?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Well, they have an opening right now for an executive assistant. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Bet, let's do it." So I applied, I went over there, and in my interview with the director, the studio lead that I was going to be supporting, he was like, "So what do you really want to do?" And I was just like, "I want to be your assistant." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. What do you really want to do?" And I was like, "I want to work in game development, but I have no idea what I'm doing." And I was just like, "Here we go." And he was like, Let's noodle on this. Like let's think about what we could do to like get you in there." And then like a couple months after having been his EA, he was like, "Hey, I think you'd make a great producer." And I was like, "What's a producer?" Which is like the question that always gets asked when people are like, what is a producer? What do they do?" Um, so I got the position. I started being an associate producer over on one of our game teams, and then I kind of fell in love with it. Like, I really empathize with what Vanessa was saying, is like, I just wanted to help people make really cool things. And that is exactly what producers do. So I fell in love with like removing roadblocks and all these things that prevent people from doing their job. And like the admin skills just kept like getting better. I kept getting better people skills, and I was just like, I'm gonna do this. And then I was able to transfer into that position full time. And eventually Crystal reached out and they had an opening for me, and they were like, would you like to work here? And I was like, yes, I would. And now I'm here.
That's a great segue, because I want to get into, without the specifics of, the projects you're working on, like really high level, what are your roles? Let's start with Vanessa. Day in the life, what does day in the life look like for you?
Oh, I'm gonna try and keep this short because my day in the life is kind of all over the place. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I've been helping support on a couple of things that we've been working on behind the scenes. I do a lot of support for our yearly observances, so kind of helping put together things like this wonderful panel that we're talking on right now. Helping out with things like blogs that come out for those panels and whatnot. I help put together some items for some of our publishing needs, and I kind of it's kind of hard to say it without sounding like I'm watering it down, because I don't mean it in a lightweight and kind of, oh, it's not important fashion, but I kind of am at the current juncture doing a lot of admin oriented things that are very necessary to keep things running though. So like that support is necessary for when we have the hunters that are trying to run the full Pride activation, and it's like, hi, I have 800 things and I'm one person. I'm like, right, you are. I'm here to help. Now you have 400 things. You might have 300 if you let me just kind of do my thing.
I would say, I would add to that one little thing of realism about working in video games is it's in any role, there's actually a lot of admin. There's like a lot of admin. That's everybody.
That's a lot of admin. Like if I want to work with things with content creators, which we've been starting to do, that's a lot of admin work too. Emailing back and forth, timelines, schedules, multiple teams that I have to work with in order to be like, hey, I need this approved, I need that sent off, I need to make sure this is aligned. Oh, that's jacked up, we need to fix it real fast, and all that kind of stuff. And it takes up a lot more of your bandwidth than people really give credit, which is why like it's a really big emphasis that community managers, community coordinators are part of dev, because they are like the gears that run all that stuff for the marketing part of it, the publishing part of it, the posting part of it. And people don't think about all those extra things that you're doing behind the scenes to just kind of keep it all together. And that's before I even have done anything for a specific game.
Yeah, it's
we're just kind of doing all of those things, and that's like on a day-to-day. And specifically speaking, every day is different. Some days you might just have a full day where you're working on one thing. And then other days where it's going to be like, okay, here's an hour for this admin job. Here's an hour for this admin job. Here's 2 hours for this special project that just came up. And you have to be kind of malleable and quick with stuff like that. So my job is complicated.
Garen, UX UI, day in the life. How would you sum up your role?
You know, maybe not as vast as a breadth as maybe Vanessa, but you know, as a UI engineer, I'm a part of the UX UI department here at CD. And so on a day-to-day basis, I'm actually, you know, getting a chance to work on the games here at CD. And, you know, I work alongside my design and engineering colleagues to be actually writing code in our games, working with our UI technologies, and we discuss implementation and we're problem solving. And at the same time, you know, there's a lot of disciplines and things that go into making a whole complete shippable game. And so when those teams are interacting with our systems, with UI systems, you know, I'm providing support to them, right? You know, getting certain teams the presentation stuff that they need so their own features and cares are actually on screen and such. So on a day-to-day basis, you know, that was the very high level. You know, I'm writing code in a game engine. I am my very first and foremost thing I care about is user interface presentation, look and feel, and how that contributes to the game experience. And you know, making my producers happy by making sure I'm burning down all my tasks in Jira. There you go. That was for you, Sam. That was for
Always
you.
record in Jira.
Always, always.
Megan, how about you?
Yeah, like Vanessa said, no 2 days are the same. I find that a lot of my job is communication, you know, managing a kick-ass team. And then looking at high level, how do we build out social and community content and campaigns that support larger brand and marketing plans that support the game, right? And you know, in my opinion, like fans are the most important part of a franchise. Like if you don't have fans, you like what's going to happen with your games? So how do we thank the fans and show them the level of support that they have shown us on like a more specific scale? You know, things with community management can include so much, and it really varies place to place. So check job descriptions when you're applying for things, but community management's a lot of communication. So writing, social text, social media strategy, interfacing with your community members, just making sure that you have relationships with them, summarizing feedback, presenting it to the team, reporting, and then you even have things like photography and graphic design sometimes, and all these sorts of things. Like anything that goes into this public facing community, it's surprising how many things you can do. And then we also just have like a cool programs that we get to do every once in a while. So right now I'm working on Girls Make Games, which is really exciting. We're having them back to the studio for the second time, and Vanessa's been really integral in helping me with that. So we're like putting together hosting for their summer camps and having them back so we can help support, you know, the future of game dev and diversifying it and so on. So those are the things. Like I love everything I do, but I definitely, it's a special place in my heart when we get to do these kind of community outreach and helping shape the future of the industry. So I love that stuff.
Yeah, and I think important call out to something that you said is that job descriptions can be very different from one place to another.
Yeah.
So if you have an inkling toward, you know, production, but you know, the job description you're seeing for one studio maybe isn't a fit for you or doesn't appeal to you, don't not look for those roles in other places, because they can look very different. We can use the same name for different things across the industry. So always read those descriptions. Sam.
That is a beautiful segue into what producers do. So it's going to vary widely depending on what studio you're at. Like some places, they mainly use producers for just tracking tasks and reporting on the status. Producers at Crystal have a slightly different role. So I work with audio, narrative, and cinematics devs. And my day-to-day looks very different. I'm more of a product owner with my team leads than I am just someone who shepherds like things through Jira. So it's really important to read the job descriptions whenever you're interested in these types of roles, because it varies widely. But I like to kind of think of producers as like if the dev team as a whole is a body, like producers are kind of just the blood. Like we just keep it moving. We keep everything going. If Garen's like, Sam, I hate this meeting because it always runs off track and no one knows what they're doing. I'm like, Garen, I got you. And I will go and fix that meeting. It'll either be canceled or it'll have an agenda that comes in. Like, I just fix things so Garen has a better life and he can make his best content.
I love
Producers-
agendas. Love agendas at the beginning of meetings. Love that. Love that.
We all do. Put agendas in your meeting.
Producers are the mitochondria of game dev, the
power-
powerhouse of the
oh.
cell.
No!
Vanessa and I are having flashbacks to like science classes right now, but
Yeah.
I appreciate that brings warmth to my heart. But yeah, I help people like Garen have a better day-to-day. I unblock them so they can do wonderful things. Sometimes that means being in meetings so we can get down to the bottom of like a problem that's happening, or it just means looking forward and being like, where could problems pop up? Lots of timelines, lots of budgets, and keeping an eye on morale. So it all kind of fluctuates. Producers wear many hats.
Before we get into the second section of our stream today, where we talk about queer representation in gaming, let's go down the line. One piece of advice that you would give to somebody who wants to get into a role like what you're working in right now. Vanessa?
Keep working at it, and as I said earlier, no path to gaming is linear. So if someone tries to tell you, oh, you need to take XYZ classes and you need to get ABC degrees, throw that in the garbage. It is not linear. There is no straight line in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be about what makes you passionate in gaming. So if you really like art, draw until your hands fall off. Keep drawing, keep those sketchbooks and show them to people. When you go to cons and stuff, take those sketchbooks with you. If you're into lore and you like to write, take writing samples, talk about lore. If you're going to that booth and you know it's a long time game and you want to talk lore with the devs, talk lore with the devs, because devs would love to hear about how much you dug into the lore, and they would especially love to hear how much you have correct. But it's about figuring out what in gaming makes you passionate, what makes your heart sing, and then just going full speed ahead into that. Do not buy into the idea that, oh, I have to check these specific boxes in order to get in. That's not true. The passion is going to be what carries you more
Yeah,
than
you can't-
anything else.
You can't coach passion, right?
No, you cannot coach passion in any way, shape, or form. That's a very good way to put it.
Garen, how about you? One piece of advice for someone who wants to get into UX, UI.
Well, first of all, I would like to recommend anyone to do a lot of experimentation. And also to echo Vanessa's point about you do not need that linear academic path. That worked for me as a person, as an individual. But in fact, today, I usually don't recommend that. Like, you know, when I myself am interviewing and looking at portfolios of, you know, potential engineers and hires and such, I'm looking at applicable skills, right? Things that they have made, things that they love. Do they really care about, in my specific discipline, user experience and user interface, right? So what I would recommend as my like just number one thing is experiment a lot. If you want to work also explicitly in AAA games on larger teams of larger titles, you're most likely going to be specialized. So find that thing that you love, because that's where you're going to hang out for a minute. I was fortunate enough to find out I really love menus. So this is where I'm vibing for now, right? So find out what it is that you love about the game process, about what part of a game you really love and enjoy, and go deep in on it. Make things, be able to eloquently talk about those things that you make. So I would recommend getting involved in a community to talk about what you're up to and what you're doing. But yeah, find out what it is that makes you excited. For me, it's buttons and menus. I'm
Megan,
weird, but
how about you, Megan?
I'll be fast because I want us to get into some of the other fun stuff we were going to chat about. But it really is about don't wait to start. Like, there are so many resources out there now. You've got Udemy, you've got free YouTube tutorials, you've got entire game engines that are free to use and experiment with, and you can start making games now. Like, even if you're in, I mean, like, Girls Make Games is from age 8 to 16, right? Like, there's no reason to not pursue your passion now. And find other like-minded people who want to build with you. So you can go onto Reddit and find like these looking for group kind of things for game dev. I'm looking for an artist. I'm an artist, an audio person, so on. Find like-minded people and just start creating. Like, don't wait.
Sam?
Most important thing for me is making sure that you need to put your career growth first. That means making the time. That means if you find someone who you want to mentor with, coming with intention. Like you come with ideas, you come with things you want to try, and then they help guide you. Like if you find a mentor, it's really important that you drive that conversation, not the other way around.
Mm.
And then echoing what everyone else said, like all great things.
Well, thank you all for sharing. Now we're going to get into the fun part of our, this was all fun. Fun part of our conversation today. We're going to talk about and celebrate queer representation in gaming. And I would love to start us off by going down the line and asking for your favorite games for queer representation and why. And if maybe there's a game that's had like an impact on you specifically, if you want to share. Why don't we start with Vanessa?
The answer is Time Spinner. It is always going to be Time Spinner.
Tell me about Time Spinner.
Time Spinner is an indie Metroidvania made by Lunar Ray Games. It's a little queer couple that just wanted to make a fun Metroidvania that everyone could play. And you start the game out, the character you play is bisexual and Black. When you're going through and getting quests from NPCs, almost every single NPC is queer coded. And they are not someone that it's queer coded just for the sake of being like, okay, here's a character, we're going to wrap them in like 20 rainbows to make it clear to everybody that they're gay, and then take it from there. These are people that have positions in leadership. They are soldiers, they are fighters, they are medics, and everything else. And as you're talking to them through their quests, they talk about some of those things as well. One of the characters that's a medic is a trans character. And her side quest is to go get herbs. And she explains to you how she can't go do that right now because some of the people who see her have weird reactions to how she presents herself. And it does it in a very thoughtful and very educational and very candid way that doesn't make it feel like, okay, we have to put something gay in here. Color that whole wall in rainbow, cover it in glitter, and then just put everyone there in the most tropey thing you can think of. What it is actually, go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah, what part of your journey through queerness, because it's, you know, a lifelong journey, did you discover this game?
I discovered this game in my second year of streaming, and for the context of everybody, I've only been out as Ace for the last 7 years. I don't know, time is mysterious. I've been out for the last 7 years as Ace. I've been out as Gender Flux for a year starting next month. And so Time Spinner was perfect because it was at a time where I have finally, after so many years of tussling with it, openly said it publicly, hey, I think I'm asexual. And then there's a character in that game who was asexual in a pansexual relationship that was a leader of her entire clan and living her best life, and just was open about it and said, yeah, I'm Ace and I'm dating that guy over there. He's hypersexual. I am not interested. So we're pan because all the stuff he wants, I'm not doing it. I love him. It's just all that stuff he wants to do. I'm not into it. And I did this live on stream. So to see something just so plainly in front of me that described me as an individual in a game, I literally just sat there and cried because I was like, this is it. This is how I feel like 95% of the time. I don't like being equated to as a plant. That's not how it works. It's just, I'm a person. And this is just this is how I am, period. That doesn't make me small or less or diminished. I still am successful. I still can work. I can still do all these things. I don't play around with snoo like that.
I think having those characters in games where their identity is pronounced and you can relate to them is so important. But I see equal importance too in the games where you have the ability to explore. And I think that connects to Garen, the game that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. When I'm asked this question, I always feel kind of bad for giving what I usually think is such like a boring answer, but it was The Sims. It was like I was very late to PC gaming as a kid, you know, like we grew up with consoles. The computer was firmly the family computer where important things were, you know, to get done, not for games. But one Christmas, I was able to weather my parents down to actually get a copy of The Sims for the PC. And it came at this point in my, young life. I think maybe I was a preteen at this point, where I was like, there are other ways of living, right? Like, there's more than just one black and white track, of how to go through this world. And so The Sims came at this time where I could explore identity, I could explore even profession. Your Sims could have they could do whatever they wanted to do for work, right? And so I kind of attribute this game to, like, entertaining the idea of being in a a non-heterosexual relationship, right? And how did that make me feel? Like, kind of seeing myself in this version that I'm seeing on screen. And it was just those early, feelings and emotions that The Sims kind of put on the screen for me, right? I eventually would play through, like, maybe 3, I'll come back and dabble in 4, but there was something really special about the first ones. And then the music is still, it's literally my workout music, The Sims build mode, right? Yeah, so that was my big, like, instrumental game, to where that first question was like, oh, maybe dating a boy would be fun, actually. Maybe that'd be kind of fun. So
What's
it was
what's
Sims.
the Sims language in those games? Is it Simish?
It is Simlish,
Simlish.
I
Simlish.
believe.
Is that your love language? Simlish.
Yes, absolutely. Simlish, and I'm yours. There you go. Yeah.
Megan, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, it was all the games that gave you freedom to explore romantic interests, so like Fable and Mass Effect and so on. And I'll be like totally upfront, I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to figuring out my own orientation. Like, I was in hetero relationships growing up and so on. So the games let me explore relationships that didn't look like the one I was currently in. And I think more specifically, like, Chloe from Life is Strange was such a nuanced character, and it was a lot of nuanced representation and needed representation. I know that, like, most of that story gears towards her relationship with a woman or women, but there's still mentions of her other relationships. And I've heard some pretty good things about the new True Colors, which I knew it's probably years ago at this point. Time. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I really want to do that also. And it's just, like, in particular, when it comes to bi or pan relationship representation, it's just like, I feel like there tends to be a lot of, like, you see a woman with a woman and they're lesbian, you see a man with a man and they're gay, and it's like there's a whole bunch in between. Like, it's not one or the other. So having that bisexual representation and not just making the assumption that they are one or the other, and or you see them in the certain type of relationship, and then it's just always a surprise when you find out there's another side to them. So I always love seeing that.
It was Mass Effect for me. Being able to romance Caden in Mass Effect 3, my boy. Sam, how about you?
I also romance Caden, and nobody agrees with that. Sorry,
what?
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Yes, I like Caden.
Sam, how about you?
So I was a weird bloomer, I will call it, where I came out a little bit in high school, closeted myself for college, and then came out again after college. So there was a weird, like, in between where Sam just wasn't gonna come out to people. My favorite game was Dragon Age Inquisition, because it did something important that I wasn't seeing in a lot of places, where there were so many beautiful LGBTQ plus characters, and depending on who you were in the game, like your main character, that locked out certain relationships. Like, Dorian was a gay man. He was never going to be with you if you were a female inquisitor. And that was super important, because so many games, to put queerness in, they will just make everyone bi, or they will make everyone pan. And it's a step in the right direction in some cases, but then it erases queerness in other ways. So seeing Dragon Age do that was really impactful for me.
Yeah, like the games that you can play totally devoid of any queer content. You can avoid it.
Yeah.
Perhaps less bold than the ones that commit to telling authentic stories around people who are bisexual, people who are asexual, people who are trans. Yeah. Let's chat about, there have been, past 10 years, the landscape of queerness in gaming looks so different, and we've made such huge strides. I want to hear from you all. What kind of work do you think moving forward do we want to see yet in queer representation in games? Vanessa?
I want to see more boldness in getting over the hump that anything that is queer coded is just virtue signaling. Because queer people are real, they exist. We're all sitting here on a panel now. We've seen plenty of people over the course of the month. And there's this kind of idea in a lot of places that, well, if we add something gay or we add something lesbian or we add some level of LGBTQ, it's just for the pandering. And that representation is still extremely important. And especially to Sam's point, not just the representation, but deliberate representation. If you say you want to represent a gay man, then represent a gay man. Do not represent a gay man, then backpedal and say, well, maybe we should make it for everyone. It's a gay man. Therefore, he has gay relationships. It's a lesbian woman. Therefore, they have lesbian relationships. That the watering down aspect is both a problem, and then we are fearful that if we don't water it down, it won't be accepted.
Yeah,
I want to get over that hump real bad.
I really appreciated the relationships in like the Mass Effect games where they were not just bisexual. You couldn't just like romance whoever you wanted. There were some characters in like Andromeda who will only romance you if you code female, or only romance you if you code male. I like that because that was committing to telling the stories around those identities. But Megan, I know you had some thoughts around where you'd like to see queer representation go.
Yeah, and I just to piggyback off of what Vanessa said that was interesting is that like I think that the perception that there's pandering often comes from like fans, or like not necessarily fans, but people online that don't recognize that it's like there's a lot of queer people making games and they're just telling organic, authentic stories. Like it's not pandering, it's just celebrating the way the world is, right? Like, and I love the fact that we have, so many queer people here at Crystal, and we can put together this panel and celebrate this. And it feels like, like being able to tell those stories and celebrate things like that, or have panels like this, there's nothing inauthentic about it. We're all excited to be here and to be chatting today. So yeah, just celebrating that, and also just queer joy. Just love seeing queer joy. Let's get more of that, more and more and more.
Yeah, because there's Sam, I think we had a conversation once about the bear your gaze trope in TV, right?
Oh my God.
It's queer suffering.
Queer suffering in general, like, was a starting point. It was the place where we apparently started the queer conversations in media. And I am ready to start celebrating queer joy, authentic queer relationships, not just focusing on the hardships that we face as queer individuals, but also that is an aspect of my personality. It is not all of Sam. Sam likes tea. That usually doesn't come up after you realize that I'm queer. People want to talk about the queerness. I want to talk about oolong and how I really think that's like the bee's knees. So
tea emojis in chat, please. Tea emojis in chat. Yeah, I think there's space for both, right? Like,
yes.
We want to have those experiences for people to play that perhaps tell or share the unique challenges that queer people face. But just as important, we also want models of queer people where, it's that idealized world where we've moved past the suffering and they're just successful, queer, confident people. I think having those models are just as important in games.
Yeah, and it's happening. Like we see it in the media right now. Like Grey's Anatomy used to do this like all the time, and now like there are very successful queer relationships that are happening. No one's died yet, and it's beautiful. And I want that to happen in games where we keep moving in this direction, where we tell authentic stories and we celebrate the joy that people experience.
I think we have time for. Did anybody else have something they wanted to add to where they'd like to see representation moving forward?
I'm just putting a +1 on the queer love and queer joy part, because I'm exhausted of everything being like, here's a queer couple and guess they're going to have to break up. It's like, what if they just stayed together?
What if they just had a great time for once? Like just hang around for a few episodes a season or two. Like that'd be great.
That'd be really cool.
Just ship them and let the ship keep
Mhm.
sailing into the sunset.
Yep.
I think we have time for one more question before we let everyone go. How are we celebrating Pride this year? Vanessa.
I am still raising money for It Gets Better because it's the final week of Pride Month. Celebrate gayness year round, but this month, celebrate gayness by donating to my campaign, to the Crystal Dynamics campaign as well. But yes, I'm celebrating with It Gets Better, and we did a lot of fun stuff already earlier in this month that I got to celebrate with. We did some speed running events with Games Done Quick, and that was super fun. And we did some gay baking. I did that last weekend. We made some rainbow cookies and rainbow cake. One of my recipients confirmed that they received both, and they're very excited, and it's very gay. And
Was it like a
honestly,
rainbow cake, like you slice in and it's each layer is like a different color?
yeah, it actually
Yeah.
like you slice into it, and it's like vertical striped even. It was some pro stuff. I'm
That's
really
pro.
proud of me.
Love
I'm
it.
proud, and it was in the gender flux flag. So I was just like literally on streams scooping with every ounce of my life, like, oh dear God, I hope this comes out well. But yeah, and I'm celebrating Pride just by kind of being me, being myself, and doing my typical everyday gay stuff because it's been a busy month, a busy 3 months, honestly. And I'm looking forward to just kind of get some time to sit back and play some gay video games after this.
Darren,
Love
how
it.
about you?
Well, I think I have to go bake something because that sounds wonderful. So I'm gonna go probably look up something fun for dessert. Well, here in the South, it's still very hot. So usually Central Texas is Pride Month offerings. We do have things, over the last month or so, I've gone out to some of our, queer districts and such. They've had some really fun like bazaars and art fairs to support some queer artists and local talent. So that's been really fun, but it's still too dang hot. So actually, I'm going to go and explore the Midwest with some good friends really soon, and hopefully it's much cooler up there. And check out and celebrate the queer districts up there. So I'm gonna try and get away from the heat.
We're at in Midwest.
We're gonna be in Chicago.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
It's gonna be pretty good.
nothing going on there.
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
Chicago,
But,
very boring city.
So we're gonna check that out and hopefully beat this heat because yeah, we're both all down here in Texas and such. I'm like it's too dang hot. But Central Texas usually has their events actually in the fall, so I'll get another
Ooh.
wave of fun in about I think late September. That's actually when we have our parade.
that's
It's actually late
nice.
September. So yeah.
Megan, how about you?
Before I get into that, I do just want to do a quick shout out because I know there's some members of the Tomb Raider fandom here, and I just want to say that like the TR fandom has a huge queer community because Laura defied gender norms and was just like, I am who I am, and I love that. And so I just want to give them a shout out because they actually like the Tomb Raider community helped me figure out that I was actually bi because they're so welcoming and beautiful and so many strong queer voices, and I was just like, why do I feel so at home here? Oh, light bulb. So yeah, just thank you all. I love you all. And I'm just celebrating Pride at home with my family, which feels like a amazing way to do this. Just as like a little aside, my brother came out as gay in the late 90s and he's like my hero, and like he put that sticker on his backpack at school and started a support group even though the school wouldn't promote it and stuff like that. And then a year later my family's marching in pride parades. Like they are my heroes. I adore them. Also this morning when I told my mom I was doing this thing, I was like, did I ever tell you I was bi? And she's like, you put it into your Twitter profile. And it's like, that's how non-issue it is. It's such a non-issue that I never actually even told my parents that about my sexuality. And that's like the fact that I have that support network and that support group, that it's such a non-issue is just, I know how privileged I am. And so being at home with them is the perfect place to be for Pride.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Sam.
For me, I do curling, like the Winter Olympic sport, and we had a tournament recently to celebrate Pride Month. It's our Pride Bonspiel. So I volunteered for that. I ran the front desk and sold a whole bunch of lovely Pride merch and got to watch my team do curling.
My gosh, is curling the sport on the ice with
the
like
brooms and the rocks that
yeah.
slide? It's absolutely amazing. I really enjoy it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love Pride Month. I think we are all aware of the news, and there's a deluge of stuff throughout the year that is not great for queer people to see. And the reason I love Pride Month is because it feels like this one moment every year that I get to spend with my friends where there's just collective joy. We're all excited for a minute while, you know, there's still things that we have to address and things going on, challenges we have to overcome. It's like a reprieve, a moment of celebration and a moment of reflection of all the people who have done the work so that we can be out, so we can have panels like this and be recognized and seen. Our Pride celebration is going to continue on Friday. We're having RuPaul's Drag Race performer Rock'em Sakura on. She'll be on at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And over the course of the hour, we'll be putting herself in Lara Croft inspired drag. It's going to be different from the outfit that she did last year. And we're also going to be continuing our fundraiser. That'll be like the last couple days for the It Gets Better project. We are only $500 away from our $7,500 community goal. There's links in chat if you would like to contribute. But thank you all today for hanging out with us. Thank you to our panelists for sharing, and happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride. And just a quick shout out to Hunter for organizing this, and Neha behind the scenes for running it, and Vanessa for helping, and Crystal for letting us do a month-long celebration of Pride and always being so supportive. So
100%.
Thank you all, and happy Pride. Bye.